So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Springfest is happening now at Lowe's. Keep the spotlight on your yard with Stay Green Premium 2 cubic foot mulch, 5 bags for $10. Plus, when you want more help indoors, get up to 40% off select major appliances that help you supercharge your chores. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid to 4/22 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with politics reporter Mary Ramsey, my colleague at the Charlotte Observer. This past week at the General Assembly, again, the General Assembly is not holding any voting sessions, but they do show up from time to time for study committees and other hearings. They had just gavel in and out skeletal sessions this week. The big thing that happened in Raleigh at the legislature this past week was this House Oversight and Reform Committee hearing, which Mary and I talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago. It got pushed back a little bit and then finally happened, and it was most of the day, probably ended up being all day. It was about public safety, but there was one particular person who was really the target of the hearing. So, Mary, for those that maybe watched some of it or all of it or first hearing about it, basically all the leaders from Charlotte came up. You were here, and the focus was on the sheriff. But let's start with really just how this got going that morning in the auditorium, which is this third floor committee room at the legislative building.
Yeah, so this event was sort of billed as all of these leaders from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, the sheriff, as you mentioned, but also Mayor Vi Lyles, the city manager, the county manager, the leader of Charlotte's public transit system, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg police chief were all going to be brought in to testify before this committee about safety in Charlotte and specifically safety on transit. Of course, we are less than a year out from the killing of Irina Zarutska on the light rail here in Charlotte, something that triggered just a massive response from Republicans here in North Carolina, as well as across the country. You had President Trump weighing in on multiple occasions. So we were all sort of coming into it expecting to be talking about transit a lot. And what ended up happening was most of the heat being directed at Sheriff McFadden, who was certainly a controversial figure. There was a petition to remove him from office filed last month. He has 3 primary challengers in the ongoing 2026 elections. But it was interesting that he got such a critical response from the committee and really ate up most of the day. I think he ended up testifying for about 2.5, 3 hours over the course of a couple of sessions, compared to the other Charlotte leaders who came, who got pretty brief and cordial questions from the committee. So definitely a little bit of a surprising dynamic there that this ended up being not as transit focused as we thought, and that McFadden really sort of ended up taking most of the heat for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, McFadden gets a lot of local criticism, and of course this is coming from the Capitol a couple hours away. Was it just pretty much short in and out with the other leaders, and then things just the kind of questioning changed with McFadden, or was it a wide range of topics? I assume they talked somewhat about light rail.
Honestly, very, very limited about light rail. Representative Brendan Jones, who was leading the committee on Monday, mentioned it in his opening statement. There was one question to the Charlotte city manager about the Charlotte area transit system spending on a marketing contract. that just happened to be renewed around the time that the Zarutski incident happened and sort of raised some red flags. But I asked Representative Jones about the lack of questions after the hearing, and he said that budget question was pretty much the main question he had, and that Marcus Jones answered it to his satisfaction. So I do think, you mentioned that this hearing was delayed a little bit. That was because Representative Jones and his two Republican committee co-chairs were going to court trying to get the right to talk more about what the ongoing court case surrounding the Zarutski stabbing, particularly the suspect in that case, DeCarlos Brown. That situation is still moving through the legal system. So, there's potential that we could see a round two after that all plays out that maybe is a little more transit focused. But I really, the majority of questions that other leaders got were much friendlier. CMPD Chief Estella Patterson, who's probably a familiar name to Raleigh area listeners. She came from Raleigh's police department to take over Charlotte's late last year. Got to just talk a lot about some new strategies she's implementing. Mayor Lyles and City Manager Jones were asked about security protocols for major events like Panthers games, the upcoming World Military Games that'll be in Charlotte next year. So really all the harsh stuff was saved for McFadden, and what that wasn't specifically focused on transit. He got a lot of questions about his relationship with federal immigration authorities, how his office handles ICE detainers, which is basically when ICE suspects someone of being in the country illegally, who is incarcerated, and they want the county jail to kind of hold on to that person for a little extra time so that they can come in and potentially take them into custody for immigration related issues. So yeah, I was genuinely, and I think a lot of other folks in Charlotte media who made the trek were pretty genuinely surprised by the lack of conversation about transit.
Do you think it was more, I guess, about him and the sheriff's office than anything broader, regional issues as far as public safety?
I do, yeah. I think, Sheriff McFadden, like I said, is a very controversial figure. I think his hold on his office is, I don't know that I'm not saying he's going to lose his primary, but I think it's certainly a possibility. I think his situation is rather precarious, probably at its most precarious point in his tenure in office. So I think there is a situation there where you've got sort of a vulnerable figure who makes kind of an easy target. Electorally, there are no Republicans running for Mecklenburg County Sheriff. Whoever wins this Democratic primary will get the seat. So nothing potential really advantageous for Republicans in terms of that election to make McFadden look bad. But I think, it's just a lot of consternation sort of boiling up. McFadden was really one of the driving reasons why the legislature took the steps it did the last couple of years to require more cooperation between sheriffs and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, because McFadden was sort of the holdout in terms of cooperating with ICE on these detainers. And the committee acknowledged that during the hearing. McFadden expressed a lot of frustration that he wasn't consulted more about those pieces of legislation, saying that as an African-American man, as a Democrat in a state where most sheriffs are not from those demographics, sort of makes him an outlier, someone who isn't necessarily represented by the other sheriffs who these legislators were talking to. And Sheriff McFadden did say, he'd like to have a better relationship with the legislature. He'd like to meet with them more. He'd like to be sort of brought in on the ground floor more frequently when issues do come up. But yeah, I think there was also a lot of frustration on the part of the committee because of McFadden declining to answer a lot of questions. He, on multiple occasions, cited that petition to remove him from office as a reason why he couldn't talk about certain things. That petition was dismissed for procedural reasons by a judge last month, but it could very easily be revived pending the result of a state investigation that is ongoing.
So why is Oversight asking for more documents now?
I think a lot of that stems from the lack of answers that McFadden gave during the hearing and the frustration that was really palpable from the committee. I think there was sort of, not to put words in the committee members' mouth, but it appeared that they felt like McFadden was sort of using that petition as well as some other pending litigation against his office as a shield They were at times frustrated with his inability to answer certain questions, not knowing certain statistics related to his office. They said he should have sort of had on hand, given what he was going to be asked about. There's a moment that's gone really viral on conservative media and social media since the hearing where McFadden was asked about the three branches of government and wasn't able to immediately recall the answer. And, the committee said he was not correct when asked which branch of government his position falls under.
Right. And it was Republican Representative Alan Chesser from Nash County in the House. And he, there was, what do you think the county is? And then he just asked them to name the branches, period. And McFadden couldn't. So that's what I think people have seen. Before we take a break, is there anything after those more documents? Do we think there'll be any more hearings with McFadden or no?
There is certainly potential for that. Obviously, we'll see what these documents produce if Sheriff McFadden does turn them over to the committee. Additionally, I asked Representative Jones, not all of the Charlotte leaders who made the trek to Raleigh actually testified. So I asked Representative Jones after the hearing on Monday, could we see a round two? He said that was certainly a possibility, but didn't confirm to anything specific. So still pretty TBD on that front.
Okay, we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Nice choice hitting up this podcast. No surprises. You're all about diving into tastes everyone in the room can enjoy. Just like White Claw Surge. It's for celebrating those moments when connections have been made and the night's just begun. With bold flavors and 8% alcohol by volume, unleash the night. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works. Chicago, Illinois.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with politics reporter Mary Ramsey, my colleague at the Charlotte Observer. Before the break, we were talking about this House Oversight and Reform Committee meeting. Wanted to just add some background to that. So House Oversight is essentially the House arm of GovOps, which is this legislature-wide oversight group that's controlled by the controlling party, which is Republicans, because they have a supermajority in the Senate and a near supermajority in the House. And so this hearing is just on the House side. There's no bill they're talking about. There's no legislation or anything. A lot of it, the point of it is to have these discussions publicly. I did an explainer story that also came out this week that really just breaks down. I have a lot of quotes about from the general statutes in there, explaining how these committees work, what this means, and with all things at the legislature, nothing will actually happen unless the Senate also wants it to happen. So that's kind of the long range look at this if we zoom way out of the future for this. Much more imminently is the fact that we are just a couple of weeks from the primary. And as Mary mentioned in the first half, McFadden has a primary, and the winner of that is essentially going to be the winner of the general, and that might be for Mecklenburg County, but it's also the case for a lot of primaries. If you're in a safe Republican or Democratic district, if you win the primary, you pretty much sail through to the general. So there's a lot of races that we're watching. I want to stick first with Charlotte Mecklenburg again, because one of the House members, a Democrat, Carla Cunningham, who's the incumbent, she was on House Oversight, also has a primary. The reason this is especially one to watch is because Democratic Governor Josh Stein got involved by endorsing one of her challengers. So we're waiting to see what the result of that will be. There's a lot of other primaries too. Mary, if there's more you want to share about this Cunningham race and then other primaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Cunningham race is on top of mind for a lot of people who are watching this election cycle here in Charlotte. As you mentioned, Governor Stein has endorsed one of her two opponents, the Reverend Rodley Sadler, who's best known for his involvement in the Moral Monday movement. He's also picked up the endorsement of the Black Political Caucus of Charlotte-Mecklenburg, which is pretty much the most significant sort of local civic endorsement you can get in this neck of the woods. That being said, it is a three-person primary. Vermono Bowman, who has run for a couple of Democratic seats in Raleigh before and lost, is running. So you could see a situation where Cunningham sort of benefits from that. The vote against her being split a little bit in that three-person race, but still a lot of consternation against her, given her vote to override Governor Stein's veto of an immigration bill last year, and then her ensuing comments about immigrant communities. She has walked those back a little bit on the campaign trail, but generally speaking, really focused her campaign on her legacy on other issues, really emphasizing the fact that as a longstanding incumbent, she's got some plum committee assignments, that she's able to work in a lot of funding for Charlotte area organizations into pieces of legislation, sort of emphasizing the value of her incumbency, to the district as she tries to fend off this challenge.
So she was part of the questioning of Sheriff McFadden, right? And was at this oversight hearing, and then also was part of the petition against him a couple weeks ago.
Yes, that's correct. She was one of the petitioners against Sheriff McFadden. She alleged in that petition that he threatened her during the debate over that immigration bill last summer. And she initially declined at the hearing to ask questions of Sheriff McFadden, citing that ongoing investigation stemming from her petition, but then ultimately did end up asking him some questions. Not necessarily the most contentious moment of the hearing, but definitely notable given the fact that they've had this sort of ongoing drama that is still playing out in the legal system and through the State Bureau of Investigations.
Are there any other primaries there that you, I guess, is already going to determine the general?
Yeah, so another Charlotte area legislator, Nassif Majid, who got some, similar to Cunningham, got in hot water with the party last year for siding with Republicans on a different veto override. He also has technically two primary challengers, but one has dropped out in recent days and endorsed the other, a woman named Valeria Levy, who has some experience with local politics, has, I believe, run for office before unsuccessfully. So could see similar dynamic to Cunningham there. And that's another district that'll be decided in the primary. Tricia Cotham does have a primary challenger this time around on the Republican side, a teacher named Kelly Van Horn, who is only recently registered as a Republican. So a little bit of irony there, given Tricia Cotham's infamy or fame, depending on what side you're on, with regard to her party affiliation. And that is not a race that will be decided in the primary. She will face former Matthewstown Commissioner Ken McCool in the general election, presuming that she makes it through that primary. And then, as we talked about earlier, Sheriff McFadden faces three primary challengers, all of whom have some pretty significant local law enforcement experience. So definitely the possibility of some drama there, and no Republican, unaffiliated, or third-party candidates running for Mecklenburg Sheriff. So whoever wins the primary wins the whole shebang.
So both Mary and I and others on our politics team and our newsrooms have been working on candidate questionnaires for many races, including all 49 primaries at the legislative level, the state legislative level. And we're rolling those out now. We've published several. As you're listening to this, more coming. It's just a lot to sort through. And we ask them the same kind of questions. There's one I want to highlight. It's a rematch in the House. It's a Democratic primary. The incumbent is Representative Rodney Pierce, and he is being challenged by former Representative Michael Ray. And that district, it's House District 27, includes Halifax, Northampton, and Warren counties. But the questions we asked of people are ones that are important for the primary, and then also important for what their roles are going to be in state government, assuming they win. And I asked about well, we all did on all these different forms, but as we're making them, what's the most important issue in your district? So we have that if this is your lawmaker, but also all these votes that they have. We asked about the fact that the legislature sets teacher base pay. What actual salaries do you want for teachers from starting to 30 plus years experience? And what we're asking for is numbers. And a lot of candidates did tell us the numbers, and some are just saying, oh, they should be paid more. But we're asking for the actual numbers here, so people that are interested in working in North Carolina will know what that range is. Of course, we also talked about the lack of a comprehensive state budget. We talked about the current state income tax rate for individuals, which is 3.99. Should that be reduced more? So you can read those answers and a lot others in our candidate questionnaires published on both of our newspaper websites. We're almost out of time, so I want to quickly move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. Mary, I'll start with you. What's your headliner?
Yeah, I have been spending all of my evenings decompressing from all this politics fun with the Winter Olympics, learning all kinds of things about how curling works and a lot of drama related to how figure skating is scored, just a whole world that we all get to sort of trip into every 4 years. So always a big fan of the Olympics. Team USA, I think right now, last I looked, third overall in the medal count with some potential wins coming up. So look forward to enjoying more of that over the holiday weekend.
I noticed that there is a U.S. Olympian with the last name Baumgartner, spelled exactly like my last name, or legally my middle name now, Baumgartner. So I'm pulling for all the Baumgartners. As the time we're recording this, I'm not sure what the results are on that. My headliner is going to be this recent days of fake spring that we've had. It's a huge pain to wear an overcoat over a blazer at the legislature. This is just kind of a personal gripe. So it's nice to only have one jacket on at a time, or just a sweater. I don't want to wear a jacket anymore the rest of winter, but I feel like that's because they call it fake spring or false spring or whatever. We're probably getting a second round of Arctic air. But at least we have the Olympics to distract us for that. All right, we're out of time. I'd like to thank Mary Ramsey again from the Charlotte Observer for being on the podcast as we talk about a lot of Charlotte issues that overlap with Raleigh lately. For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan and producer Kevin Keister. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.